Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be upon His final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Welcome to another session of Islamic Perspective, where we answer your questions that are sent to us on our email. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to aid us in answering your questions. We start, inshaAllah, today with our first question. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shaykh, I have a few questions regarding menses in Ramadan. If I see purity during the day, can I eat and drink, or do I abstain? And sometimes I get the cramps before Maghrib, but I don't see blood except after Adhan. Is it counted? Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. So the first question here that she asks, she says that regarding menses in Ramadan, so while fasting, she says that she sees purity during the day. She sees purity during the day. So she starts the day not fasting because she has her menses. But during the day, while fasting, her period ends and she finds purity. Now she says, do I abstain the rest of the day? And do I abstain for the sake of the day? Now she understands, and we understand, we know that this day, by agreement of all scholars, is not counted as fasting. And she has to make up this day, and she was excused for breaking the start of the day. Now, continuing this day, now scholars here, they differed. And most of them said, if a person, because we're still in the day of Ramadan, it's considered the day of Ramadan, and she's a resident, and a person who is not excused has to abstain, has to fast. They said this person the woman who gained her purity during the day, the majority of scholars say that she has to abstain the rest of the day for the sake of the day of Ramadan. They say لحرمة الشهر. It's because it's a sacred time, it's Ramadan. This is the time where people stop eating and drinking. They said this is similar to a person who wakes up during Ramadan. He was not aware that it is Ramadan. And then they told him that, we started Ramadan. So this person, his fasting is invalidated. He did not fast. He did not intend from nighttime. So for this person, of course, he abstains the rest of the day. He does not eat and drink. Okay? They say, majority of scholars say that, a person, for example, a person who's traveling, who broke his fast, then he became a resident during the day, he abstains until Maghrib. Similarly, a woman who is in her menses, she was in her menses, she was eating and drinking without any issues, but then she attained purity. But she attained purity during the day. So this, if she fasts, it's not counted. Fasting the intention is supposed to be from night, and it wouldn't have been acceptable from her anyways. So during the day, the majority of scholars said that she has to abstain the rest of the day all the way until Maghrib. Yes, there is a fatwa of some of the scholars, early scholars, that said, no, because she entered the day, and she was excused, she used to eat and drink. Because she was excused, so she may eat and drink all the way to Maghrib. This is a matter of dispute among the scholars, really. And I tend to follow the opinion that says she has to abstain the rest of the day. But if you had a scholar, a trusted scholar that you follow and that you take your fatwa from, and he told you that you can eat and drink the rest of the day, you can take his opinion. If you feel that you trust his knowledge, you can take his opinion. But the opinion that we choose, wallahu alam, that based on the majority, that they say she has to abstain the rest of the day, wallahu alam. Continuing the question, she says, and sometimes I get the cramps before Maghrib. Now be careful. She said she gets the cramps before Maghrib and not the blood. See, she said, but I don't see blood except after Adhan. Is it counted or not? And this, subhanAllah, we see this, it's a very common question. So some of the sisters, she feels that she's going to get her period. She gets the cramps. She feels pain. All the signs of the menses are there. But she doesn't know. But there's no blood. Sorry, there's no blood. So the bleeding did not start. So in this case, she is still obligated to fast. She still has to fast. So she's not considered in her menses yet. There's no blood. She gets her cramps. And then after Maghrib Adhan, so she fasted just like everyone else. After Maghrib Adhan, she found blood. Now, the question is, if the cramping was during the day and there was no blood, then there is no dispute that inshallah her fasting is secured and safe and she doesn't need to make up this day. But the question is, and we all agree that if she found blood before Maghrib Adhan, then this day is not counted and she has to make it up. But the question is, what if she did not know? Yani, khalas, Maghrib Adhan started, and then she ate with the people. She ate iftar just like everyone else. She broke her fast. And then, subhanAllah, qadaran, later on, she discovered that there's blood. And now she's confused. Did this blood occur before Maghrib Adhan or after Maghrib Adhan? In this case, you attribute the blood to the latter of the two, to the latest time. What is the latest time? The latest time of the two times is before Maghrib, because this is certain. You have doubt in the other time, but you're certain that here the blood was there, because it's one of these two. And which one is closer to you? What's closer to you is after Maghrib. So you're sure that after Maghrib, طيب, that the blood is there, but you have doubt in before Maghrib. In this case, of course, we say that khalas, your blood started, the period started after Maghrib, and this day is secured and you have no issues with this. And alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, you do not need to make up this day. Wallahu a'lam. طيب, let's move on to our next question. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I was unable to make up for my past Ramadan. How or when do I make them up? طيب, alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. So this person is saying that he has or she has fasting from the previous Ramadan. Now, this could be for many reasons. Of these reasons, a person could be traveling. He could be traveling, for example, he went to Umrah in Ramadan, or for any travel, business travel, permissible travel, and he decided to break his fast. That is not wrong. طيب, that is not wrong. It's permissible for a person who is considered a traveler to break his fast and make up days after Ramadan. This is permissible. He may break his fast, or he may continue fasting. So for example, if he had work and he traveled for 3 days, so during the journey, that's 1 day, and then he stayed there for 3 days, so that's 3 more days, that's 4 days, and then he traveled back. That's going to be 5 days. He broke his fast 5 days. So khalas, and then when he comes back, he starts fasting. So after Ramadan, he must make up these 5 days during the whole year. Or similarly, a woman got her menses during Ramadan. She broke her fast for 5 days also. So after Ramadan, they both must make up their fasting before the next Ramadan. And interestingly, many of the scholars said, in fasting the 6 days of Shawwal, they said that she is not to fast the 6 days of Shawwal, where the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ has said, whoever fasts Ramadan and then follows it, ثُمَّ يُتْبِعُهُنَّ سِتًّا مِنْ Shawwal. So he follows it later with 6 days of fasting Shawwal, then it will be as if he had fasted the whole year. It will be as if that he has fasted the whole year. So for a person to fast these 6 days, he must complete Ramadan. So scholars said the person who has an obligatory fasting to make up, he must make up these days before starting Shawwal. Because fasting Shawwal is a preferred fast. And fasting Ramadan, makeup of Ramadan, is an obligatory fast. So how can you start with the preferred and leave the obligatory? So that's why many of the scholars said after Ramadan, after the day of Eid, you can start fasting the makeups of Ramadan. You should hasten to fast the days that you have broken in Ramadan. So when you make up these days, okay, you have to make them up during the year. And if you wanted to fast the 6 days of Shawwal, you have to make them up before fasting the 6 days of Shawwal. So this is also an important point. Now, the question is, when should he fast them? We said he should fast them, or she should fast them during the whole year. The whole year is an opportunity for you to make up these 5 days, even in the 10 days of the Hijjah. Of course, except Eid days. Eid, it's not permissible to fast Eid. Now, let's say that a person was not excused and he did not make up these 5 days. And then this next Ramadan came. So what's going to happen now? Now he has to fast the new Ramadan. طب what about these days? These days, because if he was not excused, it's considered a sin, because he delayed them all the way until the next Ramadan. He was not supposed to do this. So it's considered a sin. So he needs to make up these days after Ramadan again. But because he delayed it all the way to Ramadan, there's an expiation on him. What is this expiation? Expiation, he has to feed one poor person for every day. So this person who has broken 5 days, they've broken 5 days, they have to make up these 5 days, and they have to also feed for every day one poor person. One poor person. طيب. Another matter here is that, let's say this person delayed it for 1 year. طيب, till the next Ramadan, he did not make them up until next Ramadan. And Ramadan ended, and still he delayed it to the Ramadan after. Does it mean that there are 2 expiation? No. There's only 1 expiation for the first Ramadan. After that, if he delayed it for more, he just needs to make them up. No extra expiation is there. But, many of the sisters say, Sheikh, it's always pregnancy, breastfeeding, and then menses. Pregnancy, breastfeeding, and menses. And these days are accumulating. Is there any kafara? Do we have to make them up? First of all, these days, yes, you have to make them up. Inshallah, Allah Azza wa Jalla will give you enough life, and you make a commitment to make them up during this life of yours. But there is no expiation required because you were excused. If you had, subhanallah, pregnancy, and then you were busy with breastfeeding, of course, some of you won't have enough time to make up. And then, subhanallah, some days you were tired and you're preoccupied with other things, and then the next Ramadan came. There is no sin on you, and there is no expiation required, but these 5 days are still a debt, and you have to make them up, inshallah, whenever you get free time. Wallahu alam. طيب. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sheikh, I have a strep infection. With a terrible fever. I broke my fast for the medication for 6 consecutive days. Must I make them up in Shawwal? طيب. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. This person gave us a good example of when to break our fast due to illness. Remember, we always say that illness is an excuse. And we said not any illness. It is illness that is affected by fasting. So fasting, it's difficult while having this illness. And the example here is a very good example. He said strep infection. May Allah Azza wa Jal give all the people who are sick of the Muslims, grant them shifa and remove all harm from them. Ameen. So having a strep infection, this is very serious. And when you have a strep infection, of course, it's accompanied by an extreme fever, really strong fever. And it's a very serious condition, and antibiotics should be started directly. So if a person delayed this, so of course he's going to have extreme dehydration because of this fever, and it's going to be very difficult for him. So in this case, obviously, he's excused if he did break his fast. In this case, the person said that he did break his fast for 6 consecutive days because of the medication, he said. طيب. So there are no issues here. He's excused for doing this. But what is required for him is to make these days up, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Whoever is sick or is traveling, he has to make up, and then he broke his fast, he has to make up these days after Ramadan. So this person is saying, must I make them up in Shawwal? Interesting, he said Shawwal. So we say this, if you intend to fast the 6 days of Shawwal, then our advice is to make up these days before starting the 6 days of Shawwal. So you said 6 days. 6 consecutive days you broke. You have the whole month of Shawwal. If you want to fast the 6 days of Shawwal to get the reward that the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ has mentioned, then my advice is to fast these 6 days of Ramadan in Shawwal, and then you start fasting the 6 days of Shawwal. Does it have to be consecutive? The 6 days of Shawwal doesn't have to be consecutive, and the makeup of Ramadan doesn't have to be consecutive. You can choose any days of Shawwal and fast them. But an important point is that you have to intend first fasting the 6 days of Ramadan that you have broken in Ramadan, and afterwards you start fasting the 6 days of Shawwal. Now, another point that I want to address here. If you look at this, we have two different types of fasting in this question. We have an obligatory fast, which is the fasting of the days of Ramadan, and we have a preferred fast, which is what? Fasting the days of Shawwal. Now, if you remember, we mentioned some differences here between fasting the days of Ramadan and between fasting the days of Shawwal. Of these differences is that if you want to make up a day of Ramadan, your intention has to start from night. It's a must. The Messenger Muhammad ﷺ, regarding this matter, he said, من لم يجمع الصيام من الليل من لم يجمع الصيام قبل الفجر فلا صيام له. So the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ has said, whoever does not have established the proper intention of fasting at night, so before dawn, we call this night, then his fasting is not established. His fasting is invalidated. It's not a proper fast. So for the days that you want to make up of Ramadan, your intention has to be before Fajr. Before Fajr. طيب, does this imply the days of Shawwal, can a person wake up for Fajr? طيب, and then he prays Fajr. And then he sleeps. And then he wakes up 10 a.m. He did not drink water. He did not eat anything. طيب, and then he woke up at 10 a.m. And he said, yeah, today, these days are days of Shawwal and I'm still tired from Ramadan. You know, I have problems sleeping and waking, so might as well, khalas, I'll start intending fasting from now, from 10 a.m. And then he sleeps all the way until Dhuhr. And then he wakes up at 12 to pray Dhuhr, and then he starts his day. Is this permissible? Yes, it is permissible. Because we said for preferred fasting, if a person started fasting during the day, given that he did not eat or drink or do anything that invalidates the fasting, we said that his fasting is valid. This is why the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ would wake up sometimes and say, do we have food? They would say no. He said, khalas, then I am fasting. طيب. This is what we have for today, inshallah. We will meet tomorrow with the will of Allah. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خيرا.